Since 2007, one man has dared to expose the sinister power players on all sides of the phony political spectrum. Armed with over 30 years of research knowledge of the paranormal, government conspiracies, geopolitics, secret and ancient societies, the esoteric arts, and much more. One man's quest for knowledge has become a mission for the enlightenment of all people. Broadcasting from the conspiracy ground zero of Dallas, Texas, this is The Global Reality with your host, Josh Reeves. Yes, indeed. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the broadcast. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. It's Wednesday, May 17th, 2023. I've returned yet again for another edition of the show. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and being here tonight, today, whenever you're listening. Thank you so much. I forgot to mention on the last broadcast that I did that my newest film, One True God, The Unholy Trinity, which deals with the truth of religion, secrets of the Freemasons, who God really is in Abrahamic religions, all that stuff. When I first put it up, I had to use a different platform to put it out because there were FTP issues going on with the download store for payloads that we normally use to have, host all of our things that we sell, my films, all the audiobooks, all the daily shows, all that stuff. And please purchase downloads from the download store of all my work, because that's, frankly, that's how I survive. That's how I can buy food. And since we pay the operating costs, we've gotten very little in, so I'm really struggling to survive right now. On top of just losing my cat and all that stuff, and barely squeaking by with the operating costs, we just haven't got any more in. I've got to keep the electricity on and the internet on this week, and then I got to pay the electricity bill no later than Tuesday, or they're going to turn it off. So $200 is our goal for this week. So if we can raise that and get some downloads sold, so I can afford to eat. Because in the past week, I'll tell you, I've only had maybe one decent meal. But anyway, in the download store right now, the Payloads download store, the usual place where I sell my downloads, One True God, my newest film, is available in the download store. And the other download service I was using upon the initial release of the film, they limit you with the size of the file that you can put up there. So the 4K version of One True God, that's in the Payloads download store now, is twice the size and twice the quality of the one that initially got put up for sale. So if you want to see that film in its highest possible quality, that's how you do it. So please go there and get yourself a download of that. And also my other new film I put up this year, 2 already this year, more to come. Balls, Sports and the Mafia in America. It's another really good film you need to check out. And even though it seems like something that's outside of the conspiratorial wheelhouse that normally I'm associated with, believe me, there's plenty of that kind of stuff in there. I just wanted to do something that, might attract some people. And I've never been one of those guys that's given my films these bombastic titles, like I've never made a film called Illuminati Reptilian Blood Drinkers Volume 1. I would never do. You see people do that because it's just like sensationalist headlines. It grabs people's attention. I don't do that. So what I wanted to do was have something that was still, the whole mafia stuff and La Cosa Nostra and all that, it's in my wheelhouse. And it's one of my passions that I'm passionate about researching and stuff, just like any other topic, just like UFOs or ancient civilizations or anything else. It's just another topic I'm extremely interested in. And the reason I am, people ask me why I'm so interested in it, well, it's a variety of reasons. Really, because I think, like a lot of history, there's a lot of history there that needs to be fleshed out and documented, because it is a part of the cultural landscape. But not only that, it's just kind of where I come from. And I don't mean from like a criminal world or something. I just mean like, I come from a punk rock background. It's anti-authoritarian. I was raised on, outlaw country, outlaw music. And, I told you about the concert 48 Hours in Atoka, where the term outlaw country was coined. That's where I was conceived. So I have that in my blood, man. I come from that. And, with what I do, I wouldn't necessarily call myself, I don't want to call myself anti-government or anything like that, but I'm definitely anti-establishment. I would proudly call myself anti-establishment. I always have been in everything I do. And what's more anti-establishment than La Cosa Nostra? And it's not just about thugs killing people and stuff. I mean, those guys, that was just a small part, really, of the whole thing. And mostly those guys were killing themselves and other people like them within the life. They weren't going out and murdering, for the most part. These guys weren't going out and murdering regular people. I'm sure you had some exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, if you really research these guys, they were not going out and doing citizens, people in politics, yeah, but anyway, it's just, I guess I'm just so fascinated with that, because to me, that life and that history is anti-authoritarian, anti-establishment. You know what I mean? And for as long as that life has existed, now it's just so fascinating. In fact, I just put up on my YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it, you should go check it out and watch it if you're interested in that, in the whole mafia stuff and the history of it and movies and stuff like that. But I just put up the 1996 made for HBO movie Gotti, which for some reason HBO has never made available on their streaming service, HBO Max. It's really weird. And it's not that easy of a film to find. I found it years ago and had it on my hard drive. It had an HD version, so I was like, you know what? Because I do these kind of things from time to time for my own personal enjoyment. Some of them I put on YouTube, some of them I don't. But one of the things I do, just as a hobby and just for my own enjoyment, because I know how to do it, is I'll do these remasters of old concerts, old movies, things like that, and I'll freshen them up and make them look higher quality than what's either commercially available or sometimes things that aren't even commercially available or available at all. A lot of the concerts and stuff you'll see on my YouTube channel, both video and audio, I do that, and most of that comes just from me doing it for myself, for my own enjoyment, and then this is pretty good. Maybe I should put this on YouTube, share this with people. So that's what I did with this Gotti thing, the 1996 movie. I made a 4K master of it, and I'll tell you, it's far superior to any version you will find out there on the internet. And it's a great movie, and it was made in 1996, and it was kind of like HBO's precursor, even though it's based on true events, and The Sopranos was not, but it's kind of like a precursor to The Sopranos. You can definitely tell that when David Chase came to HBO with The Sopranos, you can definitely tell that this movie Gotti factored into their decision to give him the green light. And he'd been trying to get that show made for years and years before HBO finally did. In fact, I think he had a deal once with CBS and ended up falling through or something. God, could you imagine? It would have lasted one season on CBS. We never would have got that show. Can you imagine trying to do The Sopranos, edited and bleeped and cut for regular TV where you can't say cuss words or show the same kind of violence? My God. Totally different show. I don't think it would have had nearly the impact that it's had. But this Gotti movie from HBO from 1996, it features a lot of the characters, or a lot of the actors that you'll see later play characters in The Sopranos, such as Uncle Jr., who's Tony's uncle. Big Pussy, the guy who plays Big Pussy, he's in it. Paulie Walnuts, the guy who played Paulie Walnuts. I've talked about him before because he was a real wise guy. He was with the Columbos. Yeah, he's a real guy. And to me, that comes through both in The Sopranos and in the Gotti movie. Anyway, Armand DeSanti as John Gotti, and William Forsythe, who's been in a ton of great movies through the years. He plays Sammy the Bull Gravano. Anyway, it's on my YouTube channel. Check it out if you haven't. It's a really great movie. One of my favorites. And it's one of those movies where the acting is so goddamn good that it's almost a disservice to the movie. I know, imagine that, right? Imagine that. Imagine the acting being so good that it actually works against the movie. It kind of does. That'd be my only critique of the movie. The acting is so goddamn good that it's almost unbelievable. Because everybody in it is so great. Who's the guy that played... what was his name? The Consigliere? What was that actor's name? Anthony Quinn. He played Neil Delacroce. He was a real, Neil Delacroce was a real guy. I mean, he was a real. You can look up Neil Delacroce or Delacroce. I listen. To my friend Tony, corrected me from you saying Tony Volpe's name on the last show incorrectly. Tony Volpe. Listen, I'm a white bread Medagon. What do you expect, man? Sometimes I don't know how to whether the vowel on the last the end of these Italian names, whether you say it or not, because sometimes even Italians don't say it. That's what I do. Notice that sometimes the Italians will skip it and not say it. So sometimes I don't know what to say. Like mortadella. You ever had mortadella before? They'll say mortadella. They won't say mortadella. But it's mortadella is like Italian bologna. If you've ever had a real good Italian mortadella that's from Italy, oh my God. In fact, there's a sandwich place here in Dallas. I don't eat bread anymore, so I haven't been there in a few years, but I've literally been going to the sandwich place my entire life. I mean, I can remember going there in 1979 with my mom when I was 3 years old, when we lived in apartments right down the street from it. It's called the Great Outdoors. They have an Italian sub there. And I'm telling you right now, you will never have a better Italian sub in your life. Not even like an Italian deli or baker, I'm telling you, than this place, the Great Outdoors in Dallas. If you're ever in Dallas, go to the Great Outdoors on Greenville Avenue. They got the real Italian meats from Italy there that they use, and it is phenomenal. The mortadella is phenomenal. But anyway, yeah, sometimes I don't know when to say these guys either or pronounce the vowel, the other name or not. But yeah, Neil Delacroce, however you want to say it. That's actually, you know what, I found this out during the making of Spellcasters Volume 3, which I thought was interesting. Because the singer-songwriter Jim Croce, that was his last name. I can't remember, I don't know if it was Della Croce, or I think it was Della Croce. I think, but anyway, he changed to Croce as a musician. But it was like I'm not sure. I think maybe it was he didn't want to be thought to be associated with, the Della Croces, the Mafia guys. I don't know that for a fact, but I think maybe that was why. But Croce is a, that's just a shortening of what his real last name was. And by the way, if you haven't seen Spellcasters 2 and 3, which came out last year, do yourself a favor, man. My God. Years and years of research went into that. And the stuff I found out about these particular planes that all of these famous people died in. I mean, I uncovered a rabbit hole I never expected to find with that. I did an interview. God, this was the 20th of last month. It's been almost a month. I did an interview for Spellcasters 3 with Richard Serra. It's supposed to be on his Strange Planet podcast. But I think he said something about that it might be out. It may take a while for it, a month or so for it to come out, because I thought he said a couple of weeks, though, but it's been a month. But he pre-records podcasts way in advance before he puts them out. Which I could never do that, man. I would never want to do that. Like, I want to do it. When I do a show, I want to do it now, and I want it to come out now. You know what I mean? But apparently he pre-records a bunch in advance, and so there is another podcast coming with me and Richard Serra talking about Spellcasters 3. I thought it was going to be out by now, but it's not, so we'll see. Anyway. But yeah, check out that movie. Gotti, the 1996 HBO movie. And if you watch it on YouTube, the top right corner, it's like a gear. If you hit that, it'll give you a choice of qualities, and you can change them, and you can actually watch it like in full 4K at 60 frames per second on YouTube, because I uploaded the full. I mean, I made a huge, it was fucking 26 gigs. That's the largest file I've ever uploaded to YouTube. It was a 26 gig file I uploaded to fucking YouTube of that movie. So you will not, I mean, HBO, obviously, they're not even offering that movie, but you can't find a better, more higher quality version of that movie than I put out. But, yeah, and I'm continuing. I'm going to continue to crank out whatever movies I can crank out, like I told you, that don't require big budgets for me to make, which is a totally different approach than I've ever taken, because from the very beginning, I've just made stuff that required budgets and all that, but I haven't been able to raise $2,000 to make Fall the Movie, which is such a ridiculously small amount of money for a film of this magnitude and the years of research and the fucking unbelievable info it's going to be in it. What are you going to do? And I'm telling you, I'm firing on all cylinders. I have been since last year. I'm in a creative firestorm right now, and my abilities are at an all-time high in everything, music and movies, all this. That anything that lasts with anything in life, that only lasts a certain amount of time. It's not going to last forever. So that's why since last year I came out with Lost Secrets of Ancient America Volume 3, Spellcasters Volume 2, then Spellcasters Volume 3 right on top of it, all last year. And then this year already I've come out with 2 films. I've got at least 2 more coming, and definitely more than that before the end of the year. I'm sure my goal is to just try to keep this thing running and not go under and be on the street, and get some more attention on my work and on my films that I've already made, so that hopefully by the end of the year I can get Fall the Movie out, which is technically the final installment of the Spellcaster series, and it ties all of that stuff that's in the last 2 Spellcaster films that you saw together. All that there's things in there you don't even know are going to connect to this movie. I'm telling you, it's going to be the biggest thing I've ever done. And so right now I'm just focusing on projects and films and stuff that I can make that don't require budgets, that hopefully we can get some attention on, make some money, and get Follow the Movie out with. So that's that's really kind of the state of the union right now as far as my goals and what I'm trying to do and accomplish. And again, we get new listeners all the time, and we get new followers all the time. A lot of people don't know. Listen, I don't make stuff. I'm not a content creator for YouTube. I've never been, people might consider me a YouTuber. I've never considered myself that. No more than I've ever considered myself a podcaster either. When I started this out, there was no such thing as podcasts. I started out on Shoutcast streams. And, in 2009, after being on all these different networks, I finally decided to start my own platform, and I had my own Shoutcast stream and stuff for many years after that. 2015 was when we stopped doing the Shoutcast stream, but I just always had the Podbean thing to put up the archives, because once you do something on Shoutcast stream, if you don't archive it, it's gone. So I just need to address it, and let people know that don't know where I'm coming from. I'm not a YouTuber or a podcaster. I don't consider myself. I always consider what I do. I'm an internet broadcaster, and a filmmaker. I don't consider myself a YouTuber or a podcaster. I don't consider that, any more than whatever director you can name. Steven Spielberg or somebody considers himself a podcaster or a radio host just because they did an interview on radio. I've never considered myself that. So I don't make content and stuff really that much that's specifically for, I don't make movies for YouTube videos. That's not what I do. I'm making actual films, where I do all the work, the writing, I compose the music myself and perform the music myself. I'm a different type, but I'm always constantly being called, a podcast host or a YouTuber, and I don't like that, because that's not who I am. Because I've never even put my show on like podcast networks like Apple Podcasts or anything like that, because that's just not what I've ever considered myself to do. So, all of the bulk of my work that I've done and continue to do. Somebody the other day left a comment on one of my videos and said something like, we need more of you out. I'm a long-time fan. We need more of you out there. Make it happen. And I went, motherfucker, do you realize in the last 8 months I have put out 5 fucking full-length films? In 8 months. 5 films. I put out almost as many films as I made in all the previous years since 2007 that I've been making films in the last 8 months. Name me anybody else. Please, because I want to check out their work. Name me anybody else who's been that prolific in that short of amount of time. With hard-hitting information documentary. Nobody. Nobody could do it because, frankly, nobody has the combined skills that I have, because I've put in the years and years of work to attain those skills and worked hard at it and done the work and put in the time. That's all it is. But, anyway, check out the download store if you haven't. If you're a new listener and you're wondering where to find Spellcasters movies or All Secrets of Movies, any of that stuff, it's all in my download store. You can always find links in the comments on YouTube or in the read more section of the videos I put on YouTube for their relate to the show, and all kinds of previews there. If you go to my page on YouTube, the first video was like a video that talks, where I made a few years ago, talks about the download store. So you can go there and find it. Anyway, I just felt like I needed to state those things again, say that sometimes, because sometimes I just assume everybody already knows it, but we get new listeners and new people that come in and whatnot. And we don't have sponsors. I don't make you sit through advertising. I don't try to sell you on, penis pills or ball hair trimmers or whatever, bidets, whatever the new, you listen to these podcasts, they all have the same sponsors. I don't do that. I've never done that. I vowed in 2009 when I started this platform I would never do that, because on previous networks I'd been on, I was beholden to that, and I had to not talk about certain subjects, even though I think it was BS what they were feeding me. I think they were just saying they didn't want me to talk about certain subjects because of the advertisers, and I think it didn't have anything to do with the advertisers, and probably had everything to do with, they just didn't want me talking about the topics I was talking about at that time, like the Council for National Policy, and, Anunnaki, and the priest class, and all that stuff, and the Jesuits. Anyway, definitely check out the download store. All my work is in there. People always say, oh, you don't do audiobooks anymore. Yeah, I still do. In fact, I've got 2 more coming this year, and those are all in the download store as well. So just please go and get some downloads there. And, just wanted to make that statement for anybody that doesn't know where to find my stuff at. Okay, let's get into the news. Oh, this is crazy. Viggo Mortensen, Shia LaBeouf, Courtney Love, Al Pacino, and fucking creepy Travolta So David Mamet, the film director, David Mamet has a new film coming out. I think it's coming out later in this year. And we talk about right in my wheelhouse. And it's funny how these stuff that has to do with MK Ultra, sometimes they always have to have one MK Ultra person in there. And they sure as fuck got that with Courtney, didn't they? David Mamet's JFK assassination thriller is taking shape with Courtney Love, Viggo Mortensen, Shia LaBeouf, Al Pacino, and John Travolta joining the cast. The newly titled Assassination, the pick was previously called 2 Days in 1963, will be presented to buyers at the film market in Cannes this week, with Arclight Films handling international sales. Here's the official synopsis for the project. 1963, during a crucial justice hearing against organized crime, the head of the Chicago mob orders the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, creating a deadly conspiracy while altering the fate of the nation. Oh, so see what they're doing? You see that? You see what they're doing? See, because they'll get me interested in wanting to see this, but don't for a second think I don't see what they're fucking doing. You see what they're doing? It's before, like with Oliver Stone, JFK, with that one, he was trying to make it all, pin it all on the government, pin it all on the CIA, pin it all. Now they're going the other way. Now they're trying to pin it all on the CIA. Now, I guess what man was trying to do with this film is to make it seem like the Kennedy assassination was strictly the mafia's deed, and not even mention anything, which is complete bullshit. We know. I mean, come on, it's all out there. We talked about Operation Mongoose. That Operation Mongoose was the CIA hiring the Chicago Mafia to whack out Castro. And when Kennedy fucked it up and pulled the military support and didn't allow them to kill Castro, because the mob was trying to take Castro out so they could get back to the casino businesses that they had in Cuba. They were making millions of dollars from. And when Castro took over, he kicked all the Italian guys in their casinos out. And so the CIA knew this, and the CIA knew that if they tried anything on their own that was brazen with the military, that it could be seen. They were afraid it was going to spark off World War III, and Russia was going to, get involved. So they used the mafia, and it was called Operation Mongoose, and then Kennedy blew it and then threatened to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces, and then had Scientology raided like 3 months before his assassination, had all their e-meters and everything confiscated, when we know, as I show you in Spellcasters Volume 1, Scientology was, it was an offshoot of MK Ultra and the CIA and all that. So then the same guys that in the Chicago mob that the CIA used in Operation Mongoose to attempt to kill Castro, then they also, as they had a shared vested interest in taking out Castro, they now had a shared vested interest in taking out Kennedy, because the mafia got Kennedy elected. That's indisputable. I mean, there was a few states where the mafia involvement swung the election for Kennedy. There's no question about that. That's part of the historical record now too. That's absolutely proven fact. They helped get him elected, but when he screwed up and pulled the military support during Operation Mongoose for taking out Castro so they could get their casinos back in Cuba, then Kennedy became a marked man by the mafia for screwing up their operation. And the CIA also, they were trying to, they were fighting for their own existence, because they were all about to be out of jobs and thrown out on the street because of Kennedy. So he had to go. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. But I think it's interesting now that after years and years and years, they were trying, even JFK, there's even a line in there. I always point this out. There's a line in Oliver Stone's JFK where they're talking about that guy, Michael Rooker. Remember he was in Guardians of the Galaxy. He also got stink palms. Remember that? The chocolate pretzel and Mallrats. Anyway, they're talking about he was like snitching to the FBI on Jim Garrison. That's all real stuff. And they're arguing about him. And one of the guys says to Jim Garrison, Kevin Costner's character, says, he spent a whole month trying to prove that mob guys like Jack Ruby were hooked up with Hunt Oil. And it's so fucking, yes, because they fucking were. I showed that in Balls, Sport of the Mafia. I mean, that's been known for years. That's the funniest part of that Oliver Stone JFK movie to me, because they try to make out something that was completely and 100% true. And they do get into Operation Mongoose a bit in that movie too, but they try to take something that was absolutely positively true and make it seem like it was bullshit. To me, that's the biggest piece of disinformation in the entire movie, JFK by Oliver Stone. When that one line where he says he spent a month trying to prove mob guys like Jack Ruby were hooked up with Hunt Oil, which was the Hunt brothers, because they were. I mean, fucking, H.L. Hunt built his whole fucking empire playing in these backroom card games in Dallas that were controlled by the Chicago Mafia, and he would take all his winnings and he would buy these leases for these oil fields in East Texas where people thought there might be oil. Nobody really knew yet, because nobody started drilling there yet. So he was taking all these gambling winnings. He was playing backroom card games that were controlled by Ruby long before the assassination. Because back in those days, Dallas was, it was a wholly owned subsidiary of the Chicago mob. I mean, it 100% was, along with Kansas City, which I've talked about and stuff, and that's the whole connection with the NFL, with Dallas and Kansas City and all that. And the Mafia all comes from that connection with the Hunts and Chicago outfit. But I just thought that was hilarious. That's probably the most true thing. There's a lot of true stuff in JFK the movie, but for me, the most true thing in that entire Oliver Stone JFK movie, he spent a month trying to prove mob guys like Ruby are hooked up with Hunt Oil because they fucking were. I mean, it's 100% proven fact. I just thought that was, in hindsight, the movie's over 30 years old now, but just hilarious that I've heard people, my dad used to always say, that movie's not based on facts. Actually, it's 100% based on facts. All the stuff in that movie actually did happen. Jim Garrison actually did bring the first and only trial in the assassination of Kennedy. That's all the actual stuff that all happened. But I just thought it was hilarious. The one thing they tried to say the guy that was like, snitching to the FBI on what Jim Garrison was doing with this case. They tried to say, he spent a month trying to prove that the mob guys like Jack Reeves are hooked up with Hunt Oil. And they try to make it seem like that's complete, like even the idea of that. It's complete bullshit. That is the number one biggest piece of disinformation in Oliver Stone's JFK movie. That right there. So now what they're doing with this David Mamet film, and David Mamet's a good filmmaker, now they're going to try and put it solely at the feet of the mafia and not show any connection of that to the CIA. It's crazy that they're still trying to downplay Operation Mongoose to this day. And like I talked about in the last show, when I was talking about the Connecticut Mafia and all that, well, you don't hear much about that. That it really did start with The Godfather, which, came out, 6, 7, 8 years after the Kennedy assassination, not long. If you go and watch all the previous generation, the old mobster movies and the Untouchables and all that, it was all around Al Capone and the Chicago outfit and their activities. All of the mafia stuff, up until the time of The Godfather, was all revolved around Chicago. And that the whole gangster lore and the Tommy guns and all that stuff, that was all Chicago stuff. I'll get you, you dirty rat. That was all. And then there was a shift. And I believe it was intentional after Kennedy, where everything started to shift from The Godfather. Godfather was really the first one. But after The Godfather, then you had Mean Streets, and then you had everything else that came after that. Scarface, all the movies. I don't have to name them all. You know what I'm talking about. But that's why there became... And again, I'm not trying to say the New York Mafia is important or wasn't involved in big things. They were. But after that, you saw everything shift to being focused strictly on organized crime and the mafia in New York. And not so much around Chicago, as you had previously seen. That's why. Because they didn't want that stuff coming out about Mongoose, that the government actually hired the mafia, who they're supposed to be, considered as criminals, to whack Castro. And Kennedy fucked it up because when he found out that the CIA did this, well, that's not necessarily true. As far as I know, they didn't know he was going to use the military. He knew about Mongoose. He had to approve it, but from what I understand, what stuck in Kennedy's craw about the whole situation was they were supposed to hire these mafia guys to do it, and it was supposed to have, they were trying to give themselves plausible deniability so that, if they were successful in whacking Castro, that would strictly fall on, the blame would strictly fall on the mafia, and they would sell, to the press the idea that the mafia was trying, and which was true, they're trying to take Castro out so he could give the casino back. And that was true, but they were trying to avoid, Kennedy was trying to avert World War III with Russia, because if it had come out that the United States military sent in military forces to whack out Castro with, what you already had going on there with the Cuban Missile Crisis and all that, they were afraid that it was going to spark World War III, and the Russians were going to launch nukes on us from Cuba. If it came out that the United States military, in military action, took out Castro. So when Kennedy found out that in this CIA plan, which he had approved, for the CIA to use the mafia to whack out Castro, when he found out that there was actual military, United States military weapons and involvement in it, he got mad because he thought he was lied to by the CIA. He was, he felt he was lied to. Like, no, I approved them to use the mafia to do this so we could have a scapegoat for killing Castro. But you guys used the United States military and our weapons in conjunction with the mafia guys. I could have just, if I wanted to do that, I would have just sent our military guys in there ourselves. That was his viewpoint on it. And so then, after Kennedy botched the whole fucking plan to kill Castro by pulling military support and all that, Bobby Kennedy, who was Attorney General, see, he was already going after the mafia at that point. Kennedy never did, but as Attorney General, Bobby was going after the mafia and going after the Teamsters, and so then they had double reason. I think they were okay, not okay, but I mean, obviously they were annoyed and they didn't like it with what Bobby was doing, trying to go after the mafia and stuff. But when Kennedy fucked up Operation Mongoose and pulled the military support and weapons out before they could whack Castro, that combined with what Bobby was doing going after the mafia is what ultimately got Kennedy clipped. They clipped him to get Bobby out of there. And then I believe that they then coordinated with, I think that the mob guys, like Sam Giancana, I think they were at that point thinking like they owe us one. You know what I mean? We did for them with Mongoose. I feel like they were sort of leaning on the CIA. I don't know this for a fact because nobody knows for a fact, but it's my belief they were leaning on the CIA like, hey, we're going public with this shit. We'll blow this open and tell the whole world about how you hired us to whack Castro. You got to use one of your guys this time. We took out Kennedy for you. I think that's what Sirhan, the whole thing came in there. But so yeah, it's interesting to see this David Mamet movie. Previous reports about the film indicated that it will focus on events that took place 48 hours before the assassination, telling the mob's version of the story. Colosi based the material on details shared by his late Uncle Pepe, Sam Giancana's brother, who suggested that the mob's hand in the assassination was payback for the president's alleged snubbing of Giancana and his campaign against organized crime, despite the reliance on the mob relations. Yeah, see, that's total BS. That's total BS. Nonetheless, I'll still watch the movie, but let's be clear right now before the motherfuckers even made and comes out. Let's be clear right now what this is. It's just another. I'm sure it'll be interesting. I'm sure it'll be a good movie, but it is, don't get it wrong, it is more disinformation. For whatever reason, man, they just don't. I mean, it's been out there for years. They still, to this day, and I believe that's why so many of these JFK documents that were supposed to be released were never released. They just don't want people knowing that it's an absolute fact that the Central Intelligence Agency hired who they themselves deemed criminals, Cosa Nostra, the mafia, to whack Castro because they don't want the things that have taken place after that and how the CIA has used other people. I'm not going to name any names, but there's one certain guy, I'm not going to say his name, that's out there, I've talked about before the show. He's a big YouTuber now. Makes tons of money, has lots of subscribers on his YouTube channel. But somehow he claims that he never ratted and he walked away from the life clean. And I just, for one, have never believed it. But I think that's why they just don't want the truth about Operation Mongoose coming out, is because they're afraid it will not just expose that, and that the CIA used the mafia in an operation and then used them to kill Kennedy. I don't think it's just because of the Kennedy assassination that they don't want that coming out. I think it's about other things that we don't even know about. That they're afraid of coming out. Like I show in Spellcasters Volume 3. I mean, they used the Hells Angels. The CIA used the Hells Angels in the 1980s to distribute the coke they were bringing in that they used to funnel the money down to the Sandinistas and all that shit. The Iran-Contra stuff with Oliver North. Oliver North met with the Hells Angels. That's all fact. They were the CIA's distributors of cocaine in the 1980s. The Hells Angels. That's a fact. And so, if you can, with just what we know, with the CIA employing Sam Giancarlo's Chicago outfit for both the assassination of Castro and Kennedy, and with what we know about how they used the Hells Angels to distribute cocaine to, fund weapons for the Contras in the 80s. Just imagine the things they've done that we don't even have any idea about, where they've used, people are supposed to be criminals. Like think about that. You ever thought about that? I have. In terms of 9/11,